What's good, everybody? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson. Back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Jump. Recently, I have focused my attention on this brother who is, he's like a Baptist comedian. He's a preacher, Christian comedian. I didn't even know you had those beside Ricky Smiley, but okay, he's a gospel communion wine type of preacher. Amen. Thank you, God, for this brother. Okay. His name is Kev on Stage. If you guys remember, he had some very silly things, him and a female podcast host. And again, I don't come after the lady. The reason is because women are going to be like that, right? Against Kevin Samuels. I used to have words for women like that, but again, I'm not going to really hold her accountable because she did it on his show. So if it wasn't him and her on the show, she wouldn't have the ability to do that. He was supposed to stop her from saying what she was saying, but he didn't do that, so fine. All right? Let me also discuss him, if I can. This guy, Kev on Stage, talked about Kevin Samuels in a pretty, I would say, it wasn't like the worst that I've heard, but it was very nonchalant and passive aggressive. Something that you can't respect. Anybody who heard it know what I'm talking about, right? Then he came out with this begging video. You guys have probably heard it. Let me go ahead and play it again, and then we'll come back.
Yeah, I wanted to clear something up real quick. I realized I said this at length on Patreon, but I didn't address it in the public. So as you noticed, I've been promoting Patreon more and more, especially the last week or so. And I never really said why. So I'll just be upfront with you like I was with the Patreon yesterday. Podcast revenue has been down around 70% for me in all my podcasts. Josh, Angel, and Greg's salaries are dependent on podcast revenue. And it used to be tremendously lucrative and I was able to pay them and all that type of stuff, but it's downturned tremendously. So instead of having to lay them off or reduce their salaries, I decided to give the Patreon audience and you an opportunity to help basically save their jobs. I'm not even, to put it plainly, in order to help keep them on payroll, I'm going to offer more stuff on Patreon, more shows, more exclusive content, things like that. I asked my Patreon if they could increase their monthly gift by $2 or $3, and I'm asking more people to join so that I can continue to keep these people on payroll and other creators around be able to help them do what they do, pay some of their bills as well. One question I get a lot is, what about the app? What's going to be on Patreon? What's going to be on the app? I will always make the distinction on what's going to be on the Patreon and what's going to be on the app. But the people I mentioned, Josh, Angel, Greg, they don't work for the app. So what the app doesn't directly affect them. They work for the podcast part of Kev on Stage Studios, and that's the part that's been hit the hardest. And also the Patreon, as a result of starting the app, was also hit very hard. It dropped tremendously. So I used to be able to supplement their salary even when podcasts drop by Facebook revenue or Snapchat or whatever. But if you hear in the news, Facebook says they're not paying creators anymore, Instagram's not paying for reels anymore, things like that, that's where that supplemental income was coming. So I really don't have the extra businesses to offset that. So I told the Patreon, I'll tell you, if you want to continue to see these podcasts and see all that stuff, then it's going to have to come from people like you. Otherwise, I just won't be able to sustain it.
So as you've heard, this is a guy, and if you look at him on Facebook, this is a guy that has a lot of opportunity. All right. I'm not even monetized on Facebook. And I know these little dusty internet comedians, these guys make a lot of money on Facebook doing absolutely nothing. The same dusty skits for the last 40 years. Then what happens is everybody else gets in the business of comedy skits and doing the same thing. So it's very hard for them to delineate themselves from each other because they're all doing the same thing. Okay? They're all doing the same thing. So now let me talk about this. The guy goes and starts asking for money. Asking for money, can you upload the money? You guys heard it. But then after that, he had this podcast. And I want to play the first few minutes of the newest podcast. He's trying to get people to go and watch it on Patreon. I mean, the podcast is called The Strike Is Over. I mean, this is terrible thumbnails. This is awful thumbnails. This is no money invested into this actual side of the business to do this business. Like, I mean, just look at this, the same thumbnail. This guy has like a third grader doing this stuff. I mean, this is a complete dusty channel. This is not even considered to be decent at all. This is trash work. All right. If you look at these thumbnails, it is terrible. He won't even pay anybody to do this at all. So what? I mean, you're talking about you have salaries to be paid that you're missing. What are you paying them in? What like oysters? Are you paying them in like used napkins or something like that? I don't know. Like, what are you doing? Because you've been on YouTube for so long, yet you have one of the crappiest thumbnail systems I've ever seen. This is terrible. So here's what he would like to do, guys. He wants to listen to this. He's trying to get you to. He's dry begging, trying to make you feel bad about not going to Patreon. Listen to this, and then we're gonna come back.
For the first time when he didn't code switch. All that and more on the Kev on Stage Studios Patreon, just for people who pay for it. If you are a part of that, you'll get to see all that. If you're not, then you know what, you've made your choice. Hopefully you'll make a different choice later on. Maybe you can't make it right now. Either way, we love you just the same. So all of our new patrons, thank you so much. A couple of you guys have asked about like a live read schedule. Let us take the holidays to get our ducks in a row. We are meeting, we are planning, we are preparing, we are rolling out new content, but trust me, by January, we'll have a pristine little rollout machine. It'll all be good. Also, Patreon has some updates that we're navigating through. Man. So let us get our little duckies in a row over the Thanksgiving and Christmas break, because also we're about to take off for the year. Hollywood pretty much is over after Thanksgiving.
It's pretty much, it's gone.
It's just like,
which is perfect now that the strike is over.
The strike ends and at the best, but also worst possible time, because it means nothing will like get. I don't think. Whatever gets done will be very abbreviated, if it is even anything. There's no chance for a...
So guys, I really want to talk about this again, and he's doing fairly well on Patreon. So he has an audience that really supports him, although he doesn't reinvest any of the money into doing anything that works for the YouTube channel at all. Okay, at all. This guy... I mean, it's terrible. Like this thumbnail, he has a brick layout in the back. You know, it looks like, you know, he's at a, it's like he's doing these thumbnails, but the background outside of a hand sanitizer creation factory. And, you know, the guy is just pathetic, you know, when it comes to this, but yet people are spending money on this guy. So now, when you're not reinvesting into your business, and then what you're going to do is beg your staff for more money, all they got to do is look at this and say, well, why is it that you haven't done nothing with the money that we've already given you? Why? Why should we go on and give you more money? Obviously, the money that we've been giving you, you have not been a good steward of the money. Okay? It's not that interesting. It can't be that interesting. All right? So this is what these guys are doing now. Begging for money, trying to make their audience feel bad because you don't want to support. You know, hey, maybe you don't want to go to Patreon right now. Go to Patreon for what? What are they getting for going to Patreon? You don't even have thumbnails, bro. Like, this is like 2012 YouTube. You're in 2023. You're just uploading the videos. You have no thumbnails at all. You can't even pay $5 a thumbnail. Why are they giving you money? To do what? To do what? So let's make them feel, and I see so many creators do that. Let's make people feel bad for not supporting us, even though if you do support us, ain't nothing gonna happen. We're gonna continue doing the same thing anyway, giving you lackluster content. All right? We're gonna give you lackluster content. And we're not gonna give you anything any goddamn way. So just give us your money. Increase your spending on us. We don't give you no value for your money, no way. All right? So let's beg for money that we would get if we would invest in our own self. If this guy would take this stuff seriously, they could solve their problems, their podcast revenue problems themselves. But they don't want to because it's called laziness. Let's beg for it. A grown man begging. But talking about Kevin Samuels, a grown adult black man who has a paying audience, who somehow gets somebody to I don't know why anybody wants to pay to see this guy. But all of that, then you still are begging for support. How are you begging for support, bro? Okay? You have all kind of revenue sources, but I'm gonna say it like this. When people start getting money in black YouTube, in the black sector, man, they don't want to spend no money to do nothing. They want everybody else. They want to live their dreams off of you. They ain't gonna put in no work. Y'all see me be on here for 9 years. 10 years damn near in the game. Everything I have gotten, I've worked for it. Everything. I never came with no GoFundMe. Can you support? I gotta lay off people. None of that. And especially when you have a black male following, that ain't gonna work. Going around begging. Go out there and work. Work for what you got. Don't beg people to give their hard-earned money on you when you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Go out there and work. You don't want to work. You want to beg everybody for money. That's not cool. Who can respect somebody like that? It ain't nothing to respect. Your podcast revenue is down because of you. You. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson. Back at it again. Another episode of The Celebrity Drunk. Push your fire, you do skirt a bell. We're out.